Hello everybody, welcome to this DMU live stream session. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Please make sure you leave us a comment to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. My name's George, I work in the marketing team for the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences here at De Montfort University. And this afternoon I'm joined by colleagues from the Leicester School of Pharmacy, along with a couple of our current DMU students. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves. So I will pass to Tony first.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Tony DeManuel. I'm head of the Leicester School of Pharmacy. Welcome.
Thank you. And Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Johnston. I'm a senior lecturer in forensic biology and I'm the programme leader for the forensic science course that's part of the Leicester School of Pharmacy.
Perfect, thank you. Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Taylor. I'm the Associate Professor in Pharmaceutics and I deal with the Pharmaceutical and Cosmetic Science programme.
Wonderful, thank you. And over to our students. So if we start with Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm one of the students that's on the MPharm, the pharmacy programme, and I'm going into third year.
Wonderful, thank you. And last but not least, over to you, Sarah.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm a current student in Pharmaceutical and Cosmetic Science going into my third year. Nice to meet you all.
Lovely, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so for the next hour, we're going to be hearing from our academics and from our students about their experiences of online learning from the last few months, as well as what we've got planned coming up for the new academic year in September. We'll also be answering any questions that you've got. So if you do think of anything you'd like to ask our panel, please drop a comment in the comments section and we will pick them up towards the end of the session and do our best to answer them. So first of all, I need to congratulate you on staying positive about your future and choosing to continue your journey into higher education this coming academic year. We're living in an extraordinary year that's affected all of our lives and plans, and DMU understands what a significant year this is for you, because it is for us too. If you're planning to start or continue higher education in 2020, we want you to know that DMU is here for you every step of the way. Your DMU future is a way of connecting safe campus living, quality teaching, one-to-one time with academics, and a great student experience, all within our diverse, inclusive and welcoming DMU community. We're committed to ensuring that you get the extra help that you need with your life, work and study. So we've been really carefully planning for the coming year. So let's hear more from our academics about what you can expect when studying within the Leicester School of Pharmacy here at DMU. So I'm going to start by handing over to you, Tony, to give us a bit of an overview.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the introduction, George. Well, unprecedented times, but I think one of the things that this has given us an opportunity to look at the way we teach and deliver our programs. I'm a pharmacist. I'm a registered pharmacist, and we are one of the oldest and most established schools of pharmacy in the country. We're over 100 years old, and we've got lots of experience in the school. We work closely with the regulator, and I'm actually a team leader on the accreditation team. So we work closely with the regulators. We know what they're looking for in our programs, and I think one of the things that we're making sure we do is that our students aren't going to be disadvantaged by COVID, and they're going to meet all the learning outcomes that are required to become a pharmacist. So we're going to be delivering a blended approach. You also have face-to-face contact on the program, but you'll also be accessing academics through online tools. But to be honest, we're doing that already in a lot of our programs. We'll record all our lectures so you can access them afterwards. So we're taking that to the next step. And what we're really doing is learning how to use a lot of new technologies, which are actually going to, I feel, improve the learning experience. And I suspect a lot of what we're doing now, even hopefully once COVID is over and gone, but we hope that sooner rather than later, I think a lot of the way we're teaching or going to be teaching in the next year will carry on, because I think there'll be a lot of benefits. So what we've done is we've put in place a program that ensures, number one, that you're kept safe and staff kept safe, but will prepare you to become future professionals in your area. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, Emma, I'm going to pass over to you now to see if you've got any specific examples of how the changes in teaching and learning is going to take place in your course area.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned before, I teach on the forensic science course, and one of the things that we've always been really proud of with the programme is that it actually offers students a really varied experience. So we've been trying really hard in our planning for next year to keep that variety, and I think students are really going to experience that because there will be recorded lectures which students can access in their own time. There'll be things like seminars and workshops which will likely happen live via online technologies, but there'll be interaction between staff and students. And as Tony mentioned, we're actually going to keep some of the practical face-to-face sessions that will happen on campus as well. We felt with the forensic science course and also working with the Chartered Society of Forensic Sciences that accredits our programme, we felt that there's actually some practical skills that you do as part of the degree that we can't replace online. Certain skills in the laboratory, maybe using a pipette or those kind of things. It's not the same to look at a video of that or have a demonstration. You need to get in the lab and actually get your hands on and do that. So we're making sure that we keep those opportunities in the timetable. The same applies for crime scene sessions, which are really important for forensic science students. We can't really replicate those online. And the one sort of thing working to our advantage with those is that actually normally as a crime scene examiner, if you're going to a crime scene, you've got to wear full PPE. So that's normally so that you don't contaminate the crime scene. You might be wearing a face mask or a scene suit and gloves, but that actually helps us in terms of keeping everybody safe and still being able to run those crime scene sessions for students. And I think in a way, having that variety, and then with the online element as well, we can actually offer students in the coming academic year a bit more flexibility, I think, because especially with those lecture sessions which are going to be recorded, rather than those being on your timetable and us saying, well, you need to show up to campus at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, you will be provided with some material and recordings to work through, but you can make that work around your schedule. We'll probably guide you. You should listen to it, work through the materials this week or before we have the seminar, but you can make it work around your schedule. And we really have, the planning we had to do back in March when lockdown was announced, that was all very quick and we had to respond very rapidly, but we've been able to spend a bit more time thinking about these changes for the coming academic year. And honestly, I think even some of the changes that we made in March, we've realised, oh, this works better. I'm thinking, for example, on the forensic science course, we used to do some phase tests, which are kind of knowledge checks at the end of a year to make sure that students have understood the material. And we used to do those on paper, and students would come into a lecture theatre and fill in these forms where you have to shade in a little box. Then not particularly user friendly, but now we've realised we can run those online, and it's exactly the same. The students sit the same kind of test, but they can do it on a computer, and it seems much more efficient. So I think there's a lot of benefits from this move using more technology, but as Tony said, we're absolutely embracing this blended approach, so there's going to be that variety maintained for students.
Perfect, thank you, Emma, that was really helpful. Peter, over to you.
Hi, well, I think Emma and Tony have covered quite a lot of the points anyway. With the pharmaceutical and cosmetic science, well, with all the degrees, what we're trying to do is to make things relevant as well. So you will be involved with the actual core of the subject really right from the beginning, We are delivering things in very mixed ways now, but they're not necessarily that new to us. We have been, as has been already mentioned, using lecture recording for about 3 or 4 years now. And the other thing to bear in mind about this is that we're not just suddenly doing this. We've now had several months of thinking about it, preparing for it, and certainly by the time you come to us in October, we'll have had 6 months of preparation for these courses. It's very important that we do have the proper blend as well. So you do need, and you will get, one-to-one access to academic staff if you need it. Certainly you'll get access to academic staff in sort of situations like this where there might be several people in a class, but we can talk live over camera. But also what's very important is the practical aspects, and all 3 courses are very much underpinned by the practical element. It's all very well learning about stuff in lectures and seminars, but you need to apply that as well. And all of the courses have hands-on practicals in the first term. Obviously, they're going to be different for each of the courses, but there'll also be a variety of practicals, so it's not just going to be one subject. So I can talk about my subject, pharmaceutical and cosmetic science. There's going to be some practicals in making products. There's going to be some in the chemistry that underpins it, and there will be some microbiology as well. And if we move to forensics, it's going to be a similar sort of pattern of a variety of practicals, and in pharmacy as well. One of the key parts of pharmacy and developing as a pharmacy professional is not just the laboratory practicals, but also what we call the practice, actually dealing with the sort of situations that you encounter as a pharmacist, maybe with patients, dealing with prescriptions and so on. And those are going to be maintained as well as the laboratory practicals.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's given us a really good introduction to how teaching is going to be delivered at the start of the year. But I think obviously back in March, we've said that we all had to adapt very quickly to online teaching and learning. So I think it'd be really good to hear from our current students about their experience of that and how they found that shift in style of teaching over the last few months. So I'm going to come to you first, Alex, if that's okay.
Yes. So obviously March was a very, very strange time, especially as we've heard from the academics. But as a student, we still had 5-6 weeks worth of teaching, and to go abruptly into this COVID situation, it was a very big change. So in terms of when the online learning started, even back then, it was very much a case of, again, with those recorded lectures, the lecturers that would normally do them in person and then record them to watch later did the exact same process but at home. So we could watch it in our own time and things like that. Now, the biggest thing with the online learning is those things of the seminars. So seminars, especially for me, are really key. They're when you can drill in all that knowledge, you can ask the lecturer all those questions that you had in the lecture and you've not had a chance to ask. And actually what we found was, especially when it came to revision at the end of March, start of April, we were wondering what was happening with that. And actually it was handled really, really well. So I had lots and lots of calls, whether it was on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, loads of platforms that we were using. And actually it was a group of about 20-30 of us with one lecturer, and it was a big revision session. So like we'd have in person, just from the comfort of your own home. And actually that's gone across the board. So in terms of revision, our revision was basically unchanged, bar the fact that we were spending more time at home than in the library. In terms of contacting lecturers, I mean, lecturers all the way through the year are always there at the email. They've also got contact hours. So that didn't change. So actually, even last month, bearing in mind the uni term had actually finished, I was able to get in touch with one of our practice lecturers, as I had queries. I'm out in practice dealing with COVID at the minute. I had a few questions that I wanted to raise with her. We had a meeting, and we did it again over one of the virtual platforms. So actually, again, it's given us options instead of having to go into uni and find the time. It's actually timetabling is actually a hell of a lot better. So with getting in touch with lecturers, there's so much improvement, and we've been there and been able to reach out to those lecturers as well as that, but on our discussion boards where they're live all the way through the year. And like what you can do in the live chat right now is you put a question and then the lecturer goes back and says either the answer or goes, right, here's this book, you can get it online, have a look at that, and then if you've got any questions, come back to me. So in terms of my experience with online learning, it's been great so far. And actually, if that's what it was like in the early stages where it was very new and we had to do it there and then, knowing what it's going to be like in September, October, I think it's only going to be a huge improvement.
Thank you, Alex. That was really, really helpful and insightful. Sarah, we'll come to you now for your experience.
Well, my experience with kind of online learning was kind of minimal, to be frank, just because at PCS, Pharmaceutical and Cosmetic Science, you sort of end with lectures mid-March, so we didn't have the need to have online lectures that much. But from previous knowledge of online lectures and how it works on our beautiful platform called Blackboard, I, as an international student, I know how helpful they are, especially because you might be in a lecture room and listening to a lecture and you might not get a certain part. You might be shy to, raise your hand, ask the professor, and, it just goes over your head. You kind of forget it. You move away from it. But when you're listening to it online, you get the possibility to email the professor straight away, be like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were talking about here. Can you explain more? So it gets, solved pretty easily. So in that point of view, it's very, very helpful. Like I said, especially for international students who might not even, know a word like I did in my first year. But I know in kind of mid-March, when all of this started, there was a lot of confusion with one of our practicals, especially with a practical that involved a lab exam, and we didn't know if it's going to be moved sooner for before uni shuts down completely, what was going to happen. And I know a lot of people were very stressed about it because some didn't want to come to uni for health reasons. They were scared. Some even moved away because we do have quite a lot of international students. So it was very confusing, but DMU really does have the students. They keep us in mind, to keep us as a priority. So they sorted it out very nice, and we ended up having kind of a modified exam online of it. So it was very nice, and it had kind of questions to see if we did get the material right, as in, did we understand it completely? So I think DMU definitely always finds a way to sort out any situation and keep the students as a priority.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to both of our students. Right, I think we've managed to have a bit of an overview of how online learning works, some of the experiences that we've had, the learnings that we've had across the last few months. And we've got some questions to work through now that might take us into a bit more detail around some of these areas. So we'll go to the first one. So will assessments be different? Tony, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, assessments will be different. When COVID came in March, it was a very major and sudden change for all of us. And we had to put in place assessments very, very quickly so that our students weren't disadvantaged. And we had a no detriment policy to make sure that none of our students would be disadvantaged from changes in the assessment side. This has been a learning experience for us, so we've learned a lot from the assessments that we put in place. And we're now looking at what we're going to be doing for next year, because undoubtedly will be different. We're going to have new technologies available for us next year. And we're also working with other universities. So, for example, in pharmacy, we've got a network with all the schools of pharmacy. And we're having discussions at the moment about how assessments works and what we'll need for next year, because the other thing that we'll have to do is work with the regulator to make sure they're happy with the type of assessments. So assessments will be different, but unlike this current year, we will prepare our students. They will know what's coming. This year it was all very, very short notice. So they will be different, and we'll have more time to make sure we're in a better place for when you get ready for your assessments. So if Peter wants to add to that, or Emma.
Yes, if I may. One of the questions we often get asked is how much is coursework and how much is exams, and that does vary from one module to another. That will still mostly stay the same. So we will be having exams and we will be doing coursework. The changes will be in how we do the exams and the coursework. So we're trying to keep it as equivalent to the assessments in the old days when we could sit down and actually do it on paper. But the format will be different in a lot of cases.
Thank you, Peter. Emma, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think just to sort of lead on from what Peter was saying about how sometimes the format has changed, it just came into my head an example of that we did at the end of this academic year for some of our final year students. They've worked all year on a research project in the laboratory, and they submit a written thesis on that. So that could stay exactly the same. There was no problem with that. Students worked on that and submitted it to us electronically. But what we also have done in the past was ask students to produce a poster that summarised their research, and then what we would normally do is have everyone come to campus, they put up their poster, and we go around and talk to them and ask them questions about what they've done. So obviously we couldn't do that face to face this year, but what we got students to do, which worked really well, was the academic members of staff looked at the poster, came up with some questions in the same way, but then emailed them to the students, and the students had to produce a short recording where they were talking through their poster and responding to the questions. So it was, like Peter was saying, effectively the same assessment, but it's just the kind of the mode of assessment, if you like. It was being done virtually or electronically rather than in person. So I think a lot of those kind of things will be happening next year.
Lovely, thank you, Emma. And Tony?
Yeah, I just wanted another thing. I think for this year, students were very much guinea pigs, because they didn't have much time, and we didn't have much time. We had to make adjustments very, very quickly, and I think we're going to have to. Well, I certainly acknowledge the effort of staff to that work they did in a very short period of time. But we also prepared our students. There was a lot of anxiety, but we tried to give them examples of what was. What to expect, and they all do well. I think once the assessments were over, I think students were quite relieved, and I think they felt that the process has been very fair. And again, for next round of assessments, we're going to have a lot more time to prepare for those, and we'll be working closely with our students to make sure they're aware of what's coming. Yeah, it's a good question, and hopefully we've addressed that.
Fab, thank you. And I'm just going to see whether there are any examples from our students of their experience of assessments over the last few months. Alex, have you got an example you could share?
Yeah, so I mean, following on from Tony, obviously, he touched upon it earlier, that the fact that with us, it's not just written exams. So one of our big forms of assessment is actually the practice question. So you've got a patient coming in with this symptom. Do you want to give treatment? Do they need to see a doctor? And it's so much more in depth than just the science behind it. So that was one of the things that we found was the biggest change, because normally we do that with a lecturer or an actor to be that patient. So it's very much you walk in a room, you're faced with that situation. So the hardest thing for us was actually, are we doing that style of exams? Now, because of obviously the unpredictableness of COVID, we didn't actually manage to do those because of actually supporting that system. We didn't have something in place. So instead of having those consultations, we actually had those questions incorporated into our exam. So where our exam would be about the actual science behind the conditions, science behind the treatment, it was actually also about the in-practice situations. So again, those situations of recommending products based on the science, but the patient in mind. So actually having those in the main exam was actually quite good, because you could answer a question based on how something worked and then immediately go into, well, actually you've got a specific person now. Is that what you'd really do? So actually, in terms of learning, even in the exam, it was really effective. And I think that's something that going forward next year, even with the consultations potentially being back, those questions are likely to appear in those for that same reason. I know to get very good feedback that actually that is something that quite helped us in the exam. Was it wasn't solely focused on the science, it was the practice as well.
Excellent, thank you, Alex. And Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to talk briefly about how our exams looked. So it was mostly the timed exam that we had for each module, which was an hour, 2 hours. It was all online, obviously. But for some modules, what we had additionally was, after the time exam, we had a 24-hour exam. So we had a day to prepare an essay sort of about a subject that we chose. We were given a few subjects, and then we could choose one or a couple and just write everything that we know about it. So that was really an effective way to show everything that we know about a subject, to kind of, the wide knowledge about it. Because in an exam, it's quite, rushed. You just want to put the main information down, move on. But this way we could also show, just how much we know, which is, I think, a great way to show what we know.
Excellent, thank you, everybody. Okay, right, let's move on to the next question. So how will learning be affected for lab elements of my course? Tony, do you think you're best to start this one?
Yeah, what we're looking at, we're still going to have face-to-face teaching for some of our labs. So we're trying to, where possible, maintain the lab elements. What it might mean is that we have more repeat classes, so the timetable will have to be adjusted accordingly. But we're still hoping to have, or we are planning for, lab elements of my course. But we're also looking at some creative alternatives, and Emma and Peter will give examples in their own program of where we can use technology to replace some of those. So indeed, for some of the lab elements, what they may involve is a member of staff going in with a camera and doing a practical, and the students looking at that remotely. But the intention is we're going to have maintain as much of the lab elements as possible for the coming academic year.
Lovely, thank you, Tony. Okay, Peter, have you got any specific examples you could give?
Yeah, actually, there's a number of changes which will be coming across the course. Now, you'll only be concerned about your first year for the time being, but I think some of these changes are likely to stick regardless, as we've said before, whether we're still in this situation in future years. Hopefully we'll not be. So that sort of changes are coming in, things like using simulations for, say, making different types of products, so we can look at a lot of different parameters and how they affect a product that's going to be made. But in the first year, it's very important that you do actually make things and do things. So we're keeping a very strong element of that in the labs. We're we're going to introduce that for the first few weeks with workshops, online workshops, just so that you're very well prepared when you get into the lab. And I think one of the things that we do have to bear in mind is that for a lot of you, it has been quite a while since you've actually been in a learning situation. So we'll be providing that sort of background support as well. And when we actually get in the labs, well, obviously there's still going to be social distancing of some sort or another. So it's maybe going to be a little bit more regimented than it normally is, but we're trying to make sure that you get the full experience. And the whole point of doing laboratory practicals is that you have a physical experience, that you actually do something as well as read about it or do something in a computer.
Thank you, Peter. Emma, you touched on some of the practical elements for your course earlier. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think sort of following on from what Tony and Peter has said, we're very much going to stick with this, blended approach for practicals as well. They're really essential to the forensic science course. So there's some that we absolutely can't replace. And, Peter's mentioned it there. We've got to make sure, obviously, we're keeping everybody safe. We're maintaining social distancing. So one of the advantages that might come out of this for students is that actually you're in the laboratory in a smaller group. Yes, you might have to sort of, stay working at your bench. You can't move around so much, but actually being in a smaller group, then in theory, you've got, more access to the academic who's in the laboratory, more time to ask questions and those kind of things. And for the labs that we do think of alternatives for, I've heard some really good, really creative ideas coming from the team already. So once we are able to get onto campus, lots of people have got ideas to go and film things in the laboratory. And I've heard, colleagues suggesting things like, so that we can make videos that it's not just students sitting and watching. Maybe we'll make a video where, I don't know, we do something wrong and the students got to spot, well, what did you do wrong in the video? Or maybe we make a video where actually we're not talking and giving a voiceover explaining what we're doing, and that's the student's job, to actually narrate and say what are we doing and why we're doing it. So already people are coming up with some really quite creative ideas about how we might be able to use the technology with the physical lab skills as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Emma. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So what experience does the school have of online teaching? So I think we've touched on this a bit, but Tony, do you want to give any more information around this?
We've got considerable experience, and I think Peter and Emma have already mentioned we already record a lot of our lectures online using our Blackboard platform, and we've got interactive tools on there. But in addition to that, we deliver pharmacy postgraduate education from our school. We're probably one of the largest providers now in the country, and that's all done by distance learning. So we've got a lot of experienced colleagues in the school who've helped us in the past 2-3 months to get ready for the next academic year, sharing good practice, looking at new tools that we might be using. And we've also got a member of the team who used to work for the Open University. And as you're aware, the Open University is all distance learning. And again, they've been very helpful. And later on, I'm happy to explain how we've approached this as a school, but that's helped as we've developed our approach to online teaching. So the answer is yes, we've got considerable experience. We've shared a lot of good practice, and the university as well is providing a lot of additional support for staff and students as we enter this new world.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add on to that. Peter, yeah.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we have done in the school, a couple of years ago, we redesigned and re-accredited the pharmacy program to use what we're calling flip learning. So that's very much based on the idea that instead of just going into a lecture theatre and having a lot of material given to you and then doing something with it. The flipped classroom is where you're given material beforehand and maybe some indication of tasks, and then you go into the actual class or the actual session and do some active tasks involving that material. And I think we're using the lessons that we've learned from that, and we're going to roll it out across the other courses. So where we have pre-recorded lectures, instead of just having an hour long or 3/4 of an hour of just talking head, what we're going to be doing is breaking it down into smaller chunks and incorporating little learning exercises, little quizzes through all those sections of the teaching. And really what we're doing is we're using our existing experience, and where we might have introduced it over several years, we're basically introducing it over the course of 6 months, so that you're actually going to get the best of all of it all at once.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Anything else for this question from the panel? No? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Will I still be able to ask questions and get the help I need if I'm stuck? So I guess this is worth talking through what the general support process and systems are that we have in place. Emma, should I start with you?
Yeah, thanks, George. So will I be able to ask questions, get the help I need if I'm stuck? The answer absolutely is yes. Some of the mechanisms for doing that might be a little bit different, as with everything else, because obviously in the past you've had the opportunity, during a lecture you could put your hand up, or at the end of the lecture I always see that students, if they're not sure and they don't really want to put their hand up in front of the whole group, they might hang around afterwards and just grab you and ask a question then. So that's not going to be quite so easy, but staff are very responsive to email, and we already use email a lot with students. So if something pops in your head, even if you're listening to the lecture at midnight or whenever it suits you, and a question pops in your head, well, you can send the email then. I'm not promising that academics are going to respond to an email at midnight, but the next day or the next couple of working days when we've got 5 minutes, we'll respond to your email. And I think as well, Alex was saying about how he enjoys seminars and finds those useful. So I think, we're still going to be running those in a live format. So they won't obviously be happening face-to-face on campus, but we'll be using some technology like this, and there'll be the opportunity for interaction between staff and students, and the seminars are a really good place to ask questions about the material that you might have covered in a lecture, just listened to it and thought, oh, that bit doesn't quite make sense. You've got that opportunity then in the seminar to ask the academic member of staff to explain that in a bit more detail. So those opportunities will absolutely still be available.
Perfect. Thank you, Emma. Alex, I'm going to come to you to see if you've got anything to add from your experience.
Yeah, so obviously those that we've already talked about, those major platforms, the emails and, like I said earlier, the discussion boards mixed in with the seminars, they're already in place and they're going to keep going. But actually, as students, we've sort of found also like additional methods that we get in touch with lecturers. So in our course and across all 4 years of pharmacy, I'm sure it's the same on both the other courses as well, is actually we've got a group chat with everybody that's in the course. And we use that all the time, whether it's about year group meetings or actually like, we've had this practical, you need to make sure you're taking this. So we use that as a massive communication network. And that's the same when we have these issues, because the odds are if you're thinking, right, I'm not sure about this, I need to get in touch with a lecturer, the odds are there's multiple people else in the group that's doing it as well. So what we do is we pop the question on the chat saying, I've let the lecturer know this. Does anybody have anything else to add? And then when we get a reply, we actually send that back into the group chat. So you've constantly got a stream of people from different lecturers that have gone, can you just expand on this topic? they get the response and pass it on to the group. So not every person's asking the same question all the time, and you're working with everybody, and that's part of the course as well, is you do engage with everybody. And I think that's going to be something quite key with COVID and the social distancing, is you've got such a network there, and we do use it quite a lot. So for working on support, I think it's really key, and I'm sure that when you come, you'll have your own WhatsApp groups with the year as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Tony, did you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, the other thing that we had pre-COVID was open office hours. So you could just go up to a member of staff, and on their door there'll be like a timetable that tells you what hours during the week they're available for you to drop by in. So we're looking at how we're going to implement that using technology. So for each academic member of staff, what you should be able to do is find out when they're available, so that you can contact them using either Teams or probably will be Teams, a way of contacting them if you've got any questions. So we're looking at IT solutions now to replicate the going up to an academic store and finding out when they're available. So as you've heard already, there's lots of ways you'll be able to ask questions and get support if you're stuck.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. Right, shall we move on to the next question? What can I do to prepare for my course between now and September? So I guess if there's any particular advice that you'd give to students of things they could be thinking about or doing in preparation for them joining us. Shall I come to you first, Peter?
Yeah, I think really what I would suggest is just sort of get back into the swing of going over your notes, look at what you've been covering over the last year or so in your A levels or BTECs or whatever you've been covering. Some of them are going to be more directly relevant to your degree subject than others. Chemistry is usually one which it's worth going back and having a focus on. But I think it's not so much revising and having the knowledge as in just making sure you're getting those study skills honed again. And it is going to be difficult. I mean, under ordinary circumstances, it would be after 3-4 month holiday anyway during the summer. And we do lead you in fairly gently into the programs. But yeah, it's really developing study skills and also being organized as well, just making sure you know where all your notes are and you have a system for taking notes and so on. Thank you, George.
Thanks, Peter. Emma, anything to add on to that?
I think really it's just to reiterate what Peter said. I think one of the biggest things is going to be about being organised, because we will provide you with a timetable, and there will be certain teaching events happening at a certain time, so you'll be able to use that for a bit of structure. But there will be things like lectures, which it's up to you when you're going to listen to those, work through those. So just thinking about planning your time, getting organised, those kind of things. How do you like to do that? Already from studying before, A levels, BTEC, whatever it was, what works well for you. Are you someone who likes paper, who likes to print out the timetable, highlight things and make notes on it and say, right, I'm going to listen to this lecture this day? Do you prefer to work online? And just spending a bit of time thinking about that, thinking how you're going to get organised for the year ahead.
Lovely, thanks, Emma. I don't know, Sarah or Alex, if you've got any advice you would give to the incoming students. Yeah, Sarah.
Well, I would just say maybe don't stress that much about the starting uni, especially because of the situation right now, because I know that we stressed every day about it when exams were coming up, and I just want to say it's really not worth it. The uni will find a solution, everything will go smoothly, and just kind of enjoy for the summer before university. That's what I would say.
I think that's good advice. Definitely. Yes, Alex.
I mean, Sarah literally took every single word out of my mouth there. But yeah, so in terms of coming to uni, doing those things that everybody said already is just having your notes and stuff in order. I know before I came, I wasn't too strong on biology. Obviously, it's a big part of the course. So I spent a little bit of time, not massive, I didn't study all summer or anything. Just I spent a few days just having a look at a few topics that I knew I was going to struggle with. And then actually when I came into first year and we covered those, I was like, right, I know what we're doing. I feel like even though it wasn't my strong point, I'm in a comfortable position. But yeah, what Sarah said is, I know before uni, I spent a lot of time stressing over like, what's it going to be like? And especially students in their current situation with COVID, it's new and nerve-wracking going to uni in the first place, regardless of COVID. But genuinely, and I know Sarah will say the same, is uni's been the best years of my life, and COVID isn't going to be forever. It's going to be an interesting start for you, but you've got the later years where things will be getting back to normal, and it's not going to change your uni experience, because both of us have had so many experiences with DMU that COVID isn't going to stop that. And it extends well past the course and DMU. The society is everything. You're still going to get that amazing experience. So yeah, try and relax, stay calm, and then yeah, we look forward to seeing you.
Really, really good advice. Thank you, guys. Peter, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, it's also just coming out of what Sarah said there about stress. It is a difficult situation for all of us. And I think one of the key things is that we support each other. We've recognised that, particularly if you're starting university as well under these circumstances, it is going to be very difficult or a very different situation for you. And our role is to try and help you through that and to ease the way for you. And often what looks like it is a very big problem right at the beginning, after you live with it or go through it, you realise actually it wasn't such a big problem. We are here to help, and please do come to us for your help. And we've got a lot of other support, non-academic support if you need it as well.
Excellent, thank you, Peter. And Tony, you had something to add on?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I guess the biggest challenge for students when they first come to university is the fact it is independent learning, and you're expected to engage more in the course, not just one way delivery of information. But I think the advantage you may have this year is that because of the way we're delivering, you'll have a lot more flexibility of when you actually engage with teaching. So there are going to be lots of positive aspects, but I think, as Emma mentioned, it is planning and making sure you keep up to date with your work as you would if you were on campus full time. It will be a different experience this year, but I think there will be benefits and positives to it. It will be different, but enjoy it.
Thanks, Tony. All really good advice, everybody. Thank you. Okay, our next question. So how much access will we have to facilities? So we have spoken a bit about lab work and practical sessions. I don't know if there's anything specific facility-wise that any of you would like to add to this. Emma, yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe if anyone's listening who's joining the forensic science course, obviously labs are a big part of the program, but also on campus we have some crime scene spaces that forensic science students use, and so we've got a house on the edge of campus where we can set up crime scenes, and also a more sort of like office industrial space, and those will still be available to students in practical sessions. So we're looking at how we manage those smaller groups. I mentioned before everyone wearing PPE, but again, those sort of practical skills are really, really important. We can't replicate that online. So in terms of getting access to those facilities, we will make sure that that is maintained, because it's an integral part of the course.
Thank you, Emma. Anything else about facilities, Peter? I don't know if there's anything specific for your areas.
Not specifically, but a couple of general points, because there's other sort of university-wide facilities we need to think about, like library services, and physically that again might be an issue. It does depend on social distancing, but so much of what we use as library resources is online already, and we do have some excellent support guides, and the library themselves provide a lot of support workshops and seminars to introduce these different things to people. With regards to practicals and practical facilities, lab facilities, we don't necessarily have one every week. It depends on your course, but you do have them fairly frequently, and there might actually be a couple of weeks where you have more than one practical in a week. So overall, it does balance out that you get fairly good access and fairly good contact throughout the whole of the year. Well, certainly the first term.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Tony, yep, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think the other thing that you all might want to do is we've got a website set up called DMU Future, and you might want to have a review of that because it does outline about some of the things that we're going to be doing to replace some of the facilities and surfaces, accommodation, students' union. And you'll see that we've spent a lot of time as a university planning for your return to make sure that you will have a good experience. And so do have a look at that. It's a really good website. It was launched about 3 weeks ago now, and it probably answers a lot of the questions that you may still have. So do have a look at that, and you can access that from our homepage, George, I guess.
You can, absolutely. We'll pop a link up at the end so everyone knows where to go. I think we've probably got time just for one more question before we wrap up. So this is one for our students, I guess, to start with, in terms of staying connected with your friends and how you found that over the last few months. So obviously there's online learning, but being able to not just connect about your course, but actually maintaining that social side of university. How have you found that? Sarah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me personally, this quarantine situation even made me closer, especially to some of the people that I might not usually talk to in lectures or post lectures, but just, getting a few messages like, how did you get that exam? How are you finding this transition? It kind of brought us all together because we're all in a very, unfamiliar situation. But of course, the infamous Zoom meetings, we've been having those quite a lot. And as a chairwoman, let's say, of the International Society, but we still don't know how that's gonna work out, the society part. We do hope it will continue as fast as possible to kind of a normal standard. But other than that, just kind of messaging each other, keeping in touch, and I think we're good to go.
Excellent. Yeah, go for it, Alex.
Yeah, so like Sarah said, I think Zoom meetings have become part of sort of everybody's day-to-day life right now. But especially with my friends that obviously most of us have left uni at the minute because of accommodation and obviously uni not being on. So actually we're back to being spread out all across the UK and internationally. So by having these Zoom meetings, we've done revision sessions. We've also then had a de-stressor Zoom meeting after the exams. And it's that way of connecting people. But I couldn't not plug a couple of societies as well. But one of the methods of support that we have is the Leicester Pharmaceutical Students Association. So that's our pharmacy society. And I know Forensic Science have their society as well that's recently started. And they're your networks and their students from all years. So I'm actually chair of our FarmSoc, the DMU FarmSoc. I even got it like cheekily ready just there, just in case you want to have a look at it. So, I'm not plugging it or anything, but it's there.
Nicely done.
Actually, yes, yeah, I tried on that one. But that network's there. So it's not just people on your course and your friendship group. There's all years. And actually, across the subjects, we also have peer mentors. So they're students that are in older years, just to give you a bit of guidance, and they reach out to you at the start of the year. So I spoke to mine, who was a 4th year, and actually got me interested in a topic that I'd never really looked at before. And just keeping connected with those, because we've got all of the societies, like Sarah said, she's International Society. All of those links help with it, whether they're on your course or not. And I know within pharmacy, there's the local one, but there's also a national one, the British Pharmaceutical. And through them, I've got friends that are in, again, internationally, but from universities in Scotland, Wales, Ireland. And throughout this time, where normally I'd be focused on my studies, I've been able to reach out with them and connect a bit more. And those links are going to keep going forever, as I'm sure Emma, Tony and Peter will be able to say that their uni friends continue to be their friends now, and it's those links that are still going to be there.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, is there anything else anybody would like to add before we wrap up? No? Okay, well, that is all we've got time for, really. We've come to the end of our session, so thank you very much to our panel for sharing their experiences with us today, and thank you everybody for joining us for this live stream. Tony's already mentioned we have a web area called Your DMU Future. That's the place to go to find out, as things progress and plans develop at DMU. The content on that page is being constantly updated, so as and when we know more, that's the best place to go to find out all the up-to-date information about what teaching and learning, as well as stuff like accommodation and how we're keeping the campus safe and making sure that we look after you while you're with us at DMU. That will all be updated on that page, so keep an eye on that over the coming weeks. There's also one more thing to mention. So for anybody who is a firm applicant with DMU, so you've accepted your offer and you're definitely going to be joining us in October, we have an event for you on Friday evening called your DMU Big Night In. It's from 7 till 9, there we go. So go to the website to find out more. There's going to be a variety of things going on. We've got a DJ set, we've got various activities from sports teams and societies, and it's your first virtual taste of your social life at DMU. So please do come along and join us. We'd love to see you there. And that's everything. So have a great rest of your day, everybody, and thank you for joining us. We hope to see you at DMU soon. Bye-bye.